Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's a Monday morning, and thank you so much for joining us. So good to be in your company. Now, of course, today is Family Day, but while we're celebrating Family Day, it's also a moment for us to really consider some members of our more global family that are currently under a very, very serious threat. And I'm talking about the fact that today is also Earth Day, and the theme of 2019's Earth Day is Protect Our Species. Now, currently, scientists are reporting that we are losing species at more than 1,000 times the historic rate, an alarming statistic indeed. And of course, the environment is suffering, and we as humans that populate and dominate the world and are sitting at the very top of the food chain have a very crucial role to play in the protection of our species. And so this morning we're joined by veteran conservationist, author and director at Natural Selection Safaris, Colin Bell, to give us more information on what exactly is going on and what we can do. Colin, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Morning.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nothing like having the whole world's, the scenario summated in one intro, but this is what it's like at the moment. We kind of seem to have reached this watershed moment. Everything is speeding up, and as much as the negative influence is speeding up, we have to hope that the positive change can speed up as well. But let's get down to basics here. I mean, look at that. What are we doing, people? Where is, as someone who spends his time on the ground capturing the relevant data, where is the state of the wild in Southern Africa especially?
Okay, let's talk Africa. So when I was born, I'm 64, I was born in 1954, there are 450,000 of these animals in Africa roaming free and wild. Today, 20,000.
450,000
when I was born. And in context of my life. So the question is, what's going to happen when your kids have grown up?
Yeah.
What are we going to leave those kids? So in my lifetime, we've seen almost a 90% decline in the free-roaming lions on this planet. That gives you an indication. We know what's happening with rhinos. Yeah. Rhinos are getting pummeled. Yeah. But many of those problems are being caused by ourselves and by our policies. Yeah. And they can be reversed. Yeah. But we've got to wake up, we've got to make a decision that one of the biggest problems we've got is the tourism industry does such a very good job. So if you want to go and see lions, you can travel very shortly and you're there. And you'd actually think, what's the problem?
Yeah.
But we're in a situation where you've got to look a little bit further outside of our really good iconic reserves. Yeah. What's going on there? And our biggest single problem is that we've got tourism policies and wildlife policies which were fine 40 years ago, but we haven't evolved to take in the population pressures of today. Mm-hmm. And we have to have a complete relook at the way wildlife and tourism interacts with our local communities.
An assimilation, not a, they've got to work in harmony.
Well, that's the key thing. And until we actually realize that the solution lies very much by integrating our local communities to our wildlife and bringing them into the wildlife industry at scale, not just a little bit here and a little bit there. So many tourism companies do amazing things, but they do a classroom here, a clinic there.
Enough to tick the
but
VE
it's not
scorecard,
the big picture. Until the tourism industry and the wildlife industry and our conservationists at scale bring communities and make them part of it. And there's some really extraordinary successes which we need to build on. Places like, for instance, Nepal. Nepal has right next to the major rhino-consuming countries, and yet they hardly have one rhino poach. Why? Because everybody from the president right down to the peasant is involved, and they see wildlife as an asset. Rwanda. Wow. If you look what happened in Rwanda, Diane Fossey predicted by the year 2000, there would be no mountain gorillas left in the world. Today, we've run out of habitat for mountain gorillas. They've expanded to such an extent that we need more habitat. Yeah. So there's success stories, but the successes are when communities and governments, and from the president right the way down, integrate. And when we do that, we can solve the problems. But if we live in these islands and we don't bring in communities, and there's a very good initiative in South Africa started now called the Tourism Conservation Fund, which is now trying to bridge that gap by bringing communities into the tourism industry. So instead of buying, if you run a lodge or Kruger Park, instead of buying their groceries from a big department store, buy them from the local communities, make them part of the industry. Yeah. When they see wildlife as their asset, suddenly we've got solutions. Yeah.
Colin, I'm going to ask you just to stay with us because there's so much more that we would love to talk to you about, especially The Last Elephant, your book that you've brought here with you. And of course, we'll keep him here just for a brief conversation about what we can do on this Earth Day, a very important day for us to all focus on, as I said earlier on, while we're celebrating Family Day as well. But right now, let's take a look at the latest news headlines.